Welcome to Design Muse Podcast, a podcast meant to inspire, educate, and advocate on all things commercial interior design. I am your co-host, Bridget Santos.
And I'm Melanie Hanna.
We are Design Muse Podcast.
Hi, welcome back to Design Muse Podcast. We are thrilled to have our new muse of the month, Krystal Lucero. And before we dive in, I'm going to tell a little bit of a story. I went to Stephen F. Austin State University. Krystal was 2 years ahead of me. And since actually over 20 years, I have looked up to Krystal. So I don't think I've ever told you this, Krystal, but as a younger classman, we all admired you. You were a designer, you were a leader, you were involved in everything SFA spirit, Axum Jacks. And so it's a true honor to have you on our podcast today to share your knowledge and wisdom of everything interior design. So welcome to the show, Krystal.
Thank you guys so much for having me. And gosh, you're going to make me cry before we get started.
Well, from a very young age, you were such a role model for so many people. A lot of times, I think in our lives, we don't really get told that. So it is a true honor having you on today. And for our listeners that are new, Design Muse Podcast, we are here to inspire, educate, and advocate for all things commercial interior design. Today, we have asked Krystal Lucero to come on and share a little bit about her journey. We're going to be talking about project management today and really just advocacy for interior design. So let's start it off. Krystal, if you could introduce yourself, your firm, what you love the most, just give us a little introduction.
Of course. So I'm Krystal Lucero. Like you said earlier, Mel, I've been working in the industry for over 20 years, which still can't believe that's happened. Graduated from Stephen F. Austin in 2005 and been working in the industry ever since. I was one of those people who'd never changed my major in college, went straight to SFA and decided I wanted to do interior design before I got there. Sally Ann, one of our professors, Swearingen, she went to high school with my parents. And so that's how I knew about the program and knew that I wanted to do design early on in my life. And so now I've been working again, like I said, for 20 plus years. I'm at Edwards and Mulhausen Interior Design. So we're strictly interior design firm. We team up with some of the larger architectural firms on projects and focus on healthcare, higher ed, a little bit of corporate here and there, a lot of furniture. So a lot of furniture coordination and specification. And that's kind of where we team up with those other design firms on those projects. So
it's amazing.
And I've been here 12 years, almost 13 years. Yeah. Which is
congratulations.
Yes,
Yeah.
which goes like fast.
Yes, and that's a huge deal in our industry to be at the same place for 13 years. I mean, there is a lot of kind of hopping every couple years in our industry. So 13 years, congratulations. That's amazing.
They've been through a lot of life with me. So it's been, I can't believe how quickly that happened, 13 years. So I want to highlight that.
I have a question, and you probably get this often because interior designers, there's no loyalty. It feels like every few years, the grass is greener on the other side or something. Everybody has their own reasons. But what has made you stay particularly at your role?
I am a Taurus, so I'm very loyal and stubborn at the same time. And the two owners of the company and my bosses are women, and they're right at 50 years old. They're not, a few years older than me. And I've been able to grow with them. And so seeing how much they've grown and how much they champion us as designers, it's been really easy. There's always times where you're like, oh, maybe it would be greener, like you said, on the other side. But let's be honest, like you move over and you're like, yeah, it wasn't that green, or that's not the shade of green I really appreciate. So I think having people who listen and are committed to you too, and then a little bit of stubbornness and having a life. I didn't have kids for about 11 years, or probably like 12 years before I had kids when I was in the industry. So I was able to do a lot of things prior to. I wasn't like a super young mom. So now I'm kind of navigating that. I have a 5 and a 7-year-old. And so now I'm kind of navigating what that looks like. Yes.
We talk about that all the time because Bridget and I both are working moms, and
Yep.
the hustle and then the soccer mom or basketball mom or whatever, cheer mom, it being all those things it's a constant juggle. It's something that honestly, my employees and I were just actually talking about this week because they said, we just got married. How did you actually have time to have kids? And I hate that I got that question. It's like, well, you can be a mom and you can work, and you
Agree.
can be or parent. You can work and do that. It's just a juggle, and you have to just be present. And one of our first muses, Christina Fisher, she was talking about how she can do it because she's present in that moment. Like when she's at work, she's at work. But when she's at home, she is at home and she's listening, she's paying attention in the best possible way you possibly can, right?
I
It's
I
hard.
totally agree with that. I mean, that's a very wherever your feet are is where you are. And then also, my boys know that I like work. I never come home and I never complain about, "Oh, I have to do this. Oh, I have to do that for work." Like, they don't know. Do y'all know the movie, and since y'all do have littles, Inside Out?
Yes.
And so you know how she has, different, like, islands? And
Hmm.
my boys were like, "Mom, I have a Lego island. Bryant has a car island, and you have a work island. You have an interior design island." And I'm like, "You're right, I do." And I like that they know that I enjoy what I do and that it's not a burden and that they can come to the office and see what I do, or we can go around and see projects that I've worked on and or what I do for work. So we were at a doctor's appointment yesterday, and I was like, "Do you see these corner guards? Mama picks selects I know it's not sexy, but mama selects those corner guards and makes sure that they're in the right spots." And so things like that, I make sure I speak about my career in a positive light so that they don't know it's not a burden to, be at the office or to be away. And so that's part of our journey too as a family.
Love that. I haven't heard anybody quite say it that way. And it's really inspiring as a mom and a business owner to hear you go home and you speak positively about it because our industry is emotional. It's hard. I mean, you're grinding, you're making decisions, you're doing things all day long where the natural person I feel like would go home and just let it all out and vent about work. You're making a conscious decision to go home and speak positively about work, which your boys are gonna see that, and that's amazing.
I love it too. I have to admit, I listened to one of your other podcasts and I actually wrote this down. You mentioned that you said I asked for this on the podcast. Do you remember that?
Mhm. Yep. Yep.
And I have to tell you, since I listened to it about a week ago, and I have told myself that multiple times just this week, because there's certain times with interior design, it can be very stressful, which is kind of lead into some of the conversation that we're going to have. It's very deadline driven, and there's always some sort of deadline in some different phase, and we're juggling a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, I realize as director of interior design at my firm, I asked for this. This is what
Yeah.
I always wanted. And so when you put a positive spin on it, it's very inspiring. And it's when it becomes not a burden, it's a joy to be in that role and see yourself in that, oh my gosh, I made it to
Yeah.
where I wanted to be. That's a whole nother outlook that I think a lot of times, since it is so stressful, it's easy to be more negative than positive. And so
Really is.
it's very inspiring. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Of course, and, one of my, kids' teachers, she said it's I have a get to do job, and that's another thing too, is, like, we get to do this. Again, going to that doctor's appointment, my oldest son had a heart surgery at 5.5 months, and so this was one of his checkups, and I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, that doctor had to open up Bo's heart and go in and mend it," and we'll end up having to have another one, and that's kinda what we do every year, but I get to select beautiful things all day, and, obviously those deadlines are stressful, but can you imagine opening somebody's heart and having to go
Oh,
in and do that type of work?
no, but the work that you do being in healthcare, it helps heal people. That's incredible.
And so he can do that job. He can be able to move around his operation room in a safe way, and the patients can heal, like you said, in their space. And so my husband has a joke too that all interior designers need to sleep in recliners at the hospital because we've done a lot of sleeping in recliners. Or he's like, "Do y'all select these, but do y'all actually sleep in them?" And I'm like, "That's
That's a very legit question.
very
So
legit."
my firm, we work on some senior living projects, and
Mhm.
our senior living practice leader, he will actually do what's called a sleep in. So he will actually go and stay in the senior living facilities, especially for a renovation or even a new build, trying to see what works and doesn't work for the
Yeah.
client in the current facilities. And he'll actually take a walk around. How is this getting in and out? So he was
That's
telling us
amazing.
about all of this and how this upcoming sleep in, and he actually brought wheelchairs and he actually brought walkers and all the things and was like, all right, go to the bathroom.
Yes.
Check it out. And
No.
it puts you
That's
in a whole new
awesome.
perspective on all the accessibility requirements and code requirements. I think sometimes it's a different perspective to put yourself in that person's shoes.
It really is. Didn't we do that in school? I feel like we put, like, glasses on that were, like, a yellowing
Yes.
and had to, like, see how the colors that we selected were, changed by the cataracts or the yellowing of the eyes as you age. I
Yes. I'm
remember
having flashbacks right now.
I know, 20 years ago, girl. It goes by quick.
When I was in school, we had to do a whole day in a wheelchair. So
Yeah.
we were learning accessibility codes and they got us all wheelchairs and we had to go to every single class and be in it one full day. And I can't even tell you the amount of appreciation you have. Number one, I mean, it is so difficult, even with an ADA accessible route. I mean,
Right.
it is so difficult to get around. So I can't imagine, not an ADA accessible route and still trying
Yes.
to get around. Yeah.
And you're full body. You're able bodied too.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So a lot of what we do is about empathy at the end
Mhm.
of the day, right? And so part of our podcast is about avocation, and part of that goes back to being empathetic and also sharing our experiences so others can be empathetic and understand what interior designers do or what we're thinking about the thought process, or even like we were talking about project management and all the things that we touch and do. Let's dive into that with avocation side of things. If you could have anything to advocate for, what would you advocate for?
So just knowing what we do, like you pretty much hit at the high level. I know this has happened to y'all since you've become a designer. They're like, "Oh, you're into design? How glamorous. How whatever the insert word that is not stressful." Like they don't think of stress. They're like, "Why are you stressed? And you're just you're into design." They think of very like, the fluffing the pillows and doing, selecting upholstery or whatever it might be. I think that we have to let them know that no, we affect all the spaces. I even go down to I try to do the most basic place. Like, do you know when you walk into Walgreens? Or do you walk into Target, Walmart? There was an interior designer that made all of those selections that probably had an input on the lighting that's maybe navigating you through those aisles. So again, those aren't really sexy spaces, but just so that they know that an interior designer also touches those type of spaces. So trying to not bring it down to like the bases, like every day you're in a interior of a space and knowing what we do, just and we got a degree for it and we're licensed for it. And they're like, "Wait, what? You're licensed? You went to college for this?" And I think it's interesting that people still don't know it's a degree, like that it's an actual degree.
I will say I was on a trip with some friends over Memorial Day weekend, and she was having a conversation with us about a nutritionist versus a dietitian and how much licensing it takes to be a dietitian and how frustrating it is for her in her industry. And all I kept thinking about was our industry and how frustrating it can be to hear somebody downplay what we do or say they're an interior designer when they're not fully licensed and have gone through all the education and courses that we've been through to be licensed,
Right,
or even not even understand what it means to be a licensed interior designer or a commercial interior designer.
right,
And I think that's a huge thing to advocate for in general in our industry. When I met my husband, he had no idea, and I had to educate him on what it
right.
all means to be an interior designer. And I think that's the problem we're still having is the public still has this notion about interior designers that's not what we actually do. And how do we change that narrative?
I don't know, obviously, what residential designers have done and influencers and things like that. They've used social platforms, they've used media, and bless y'all for doing this because y'all are advocating for our profession right now, like for what y'all are doing, and also being full time designers, right? And in my head, I'm like, oh, that'd be nice to start documenting and start sharing in a different way than we always do. And I'm like, oh, I got to work on that deadline right now. And one day, I feel like that's the way into the everyday living room, I guess you could say. is by sharing and again doing what you guys are doing. So I appreciate y'all doing what y'all are doing.
I just was laughing in my head because just thinking about my week of
Yes.
marking up like life safety plans, how exciting that is. It's like I'm
Yeah.
gonna just start recording my Bluebeam sessions of me marking up stuff and let it go viral.
Yes,
But
Right.
exactly.
But, I was thinking about this with interior design, a lot of people they'll see the end result of it. They
Hmm.
don't see all the nitty-gritty along the way, and I always compare it to watercoloring or art. It's like you start adding the different layers, and people don't see the whole vision yet, but we have a vision for it as a designer or an artist, and so it's like the layers, each layer it adds more and more, right? And then everybody just sees the pretty picture at the end, but they don't realize the hard work and the vision along the way. And it's just so interesting to me when you start to compare it to either other professions like an artist or a nutritionist or doctor, lawyer. And so there's all these different things. But I think with interior design, I don't know what it is. It's just been difficult to get people out of their mind of decorator. But the last 10 years, I was thinking about this, is so different, even from when I started in the industry versus now. I do think that there has been a pendulum swing. I
Hmm.
think that interior designers are getting more respect, but it's still the general public or educating certain clients, maybe even in certain sectors of just what we do and the value that interior designers bring. They enrich lives and how we do that.
I love that you said in the last 10 years because it got me thinking it's like maybe it is kind of like in the industry the last like 10 to 20 years because I do remember feeling when I first got out of school that I called it paint by numbers and the architect would kind of keep you out of the realm of the process of the design development and then they'd be like, "Oh, select a color, select, flooring." And you're like, "Okay, I haven't talked to the client. I don't know, you don't really and so it's like, I don't wanna paint by numbers. I don't wanna go in there and just make selections without having a real sense of what the project is for, maybe they could just give you a budget number or whatever it might be. But it is nice that the industry is being more involved. And also for us working for a strictly interiors firm, we are working with the MEPs and coordinating, like, we're working on a convention center project and, here in Austin, and which I loved, the contractor was like, "Okay, we're about to do the pour. We're getting ready to do the base pour schedule, but we wanna make sure that we coordinate all of the floor pokes with the furniture." And I'm like,
Music
"Really?
to my ears.
Yes, really? Thank you, Mr. Contractor, that you want to coordinate where the floor pokes are located because that's something that people don't realize that we do. Like, if you want that workstation powered, we gotta know where everything lives before we start selecting, coring in. And so I love that they were thoughtful of knowing to involve the furniture coordinators to make sure that happens correctly, so
And that's such a great example of why we need to be involved from the very beginning, right? I mean, it's not easy to go try to carve out that slab after it's already
Yes.
poured to get an outlet there. And I think that's so important. I think another thing with advocation is in our industry alone, the architecture team. So I'm an interiors only firm as well. And I've only worked at one combination firm, which was with Melanie. And then my whole career, I've been at just an interior only firm in the multifamily space. So a little bit different than what you do, Crystal. But still, architects seem to be really advocating for interiors to come on board too. And I say that and I like to see that because they have so many other things to coordinate and things going on. Good architects understand if interiors are brought on and the right interiors, then we actually make their job a lot easier as well. So,
Right,
advocation within our industry, I think, is even so important with the architect saying, hey, we really need to get interiors involved so we can get a space plan to MEP. So, we
right,
can keep progressing on these sets. Like this amenity shell can't just be a shell forever. We
right.
need something to keep progressing, even if they they could fill out all the units and everything else within the building. What about, the amenity shell or certain lobby areas or whatever that really needs to be
Mhm.
space planned from sketching and work through our whole process to get to what the other consultants are needing. So
Right.
advocation to the public, I think, is so important, but the advocation that I see within our own industry of architects wanting to bring us in early, and then in turn, developers or clients understanding, hey, that really worked well when we brought interiors in early last time. So let's keep doing that. And I love to see that trend versus, like you mentioned, Crystal, here's the project, here's where we're at. Can you put specs together? And so
Yeah.
we, kind of that realm. And we're really involved with the heart and soul of the project from the beginning. And I think when you see the end results of those projects, they are a lot more cohesive, they turn out a lot better, and are a lot more successful than piecemealing it together with the design firm.
Agreed, agreed, agreed. Because I mean, you can tell the different projects, right? And I guess because if you think about what an architect does too, some of the stuff is all behind the walls or behind kind of a little bit hidden. And everything that we do, the public's everybody sees. And when they complain, they're not going to complain about, you know, probably, I am like, probably will. They might, but some of the things that they see and they have a reaction to, I shouldn't even say the word complain, but the reaction to is some of the things that we touch or that we should be touching. So we have, some skin in the game to make sure that we are coordinating it well.
And I think some of the parts of bringing us on earlier, I found that I've started inserting myself and leaning in more. Hey, I want to be in those conversations. I know you're in master planning right now, but that front entry experience, it matters and have some really good input. And so I a little bit different in a sense of I work at a holistic firm. So I have architecture and MEP and structural and landscape and house. I don't always collaborate with them. Actually, probably 75% of my projects are with outside architects and landscape. But when I do, it's a beautiful thing. And what I found is at the very beginning, and even in business development, I'm telling owners, hey, I want to be there from the very beginning. You do?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I wanna be there, and my team wants to be there, and we can add this value to how the spaces flow and how people interact, those interactions of, just connection for people, and we can make that happen just through how things are laid out. Sometimes there's intentional something in the middle, so you have to go around it. It shifts your mind. We are miracle workers in a sense where we have that knowledge about how to have the psychology of design, not just with color, but with spatial elements too.
Right,
So
and to get to know, what the client wants, like, so when you were saying, like, like, multifamily, like, I know that how I feel when I go into a space that's a multifamily space, but since I haven't worked directly with multifamily, I would have to really, like, follow that client around, or I think you mentioned your boss doing the sleep-ins, like, that's amazing, like, to be able to actually see what the client is needing in the space. I love those ideas of being able to navigate and study our projects.
so we've talked about a little bit of avocation from, I would say, the public's eye towards interior design. But let's talk about from a college, like a perspective, a student. Because
Yeah.
one of our next episodes, we're about to be advertising for this actually, is we're going to have some current interns apply to come on the podcast to give us feedback about their internship for the summer. And how did it differ from what you learned versus what did you think it was going to be and what was it? From different sectors. Isn't that cool?
I love that, and I'll probably get one of our interns to to apply for it because that kinda goes into my question, like, is are interior designers becoming project managers? Because those are things that we didn't learn a ton about in school. It's like managing the, project. We learned the design phases and what is in those design phases, but managing getting between those things. So, I feel like all of us were probably self-taught, and you have those things that went wrong, and you're like, "Oh, never gonna do that again." And then you have those things that worked well, and you're like, "Okay, how do I rinse and repeat that?" Because that made the project work, well. Like these we're doing a lot of, like, weekly touch points, especially since the project teams are outside of our office, and making sure that we coordinate that way. But furniture too, it's, going into advocating for something that I don't remember learning about in school. I don't remember I mean, we now granted, it was 25 years ago almost now, is I remembered getting folders and going through like catalogs and like clipping out a little piece of upholstery or something. But like what we do for furniture now, especially coordinating, like we were saying with MEP and different power and data locations, like so all these things that you can't just come at this point in the world, you don't just come and place furniture in, right? It has some kind of tie in back to the base building. And that is something that I don't know if they're doing a lot of in school is like, I don't remember doing a furniture class per
I
se.
I don't either. And I will say, I think it's very interesting, the project management side of things, because we weren't necessarily taught that. I don't remember that, but we were taught more about the phases and the technical side of things, which is
Mm,
wonderful. But if you think about it, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when we were in school, that wasn't what an interior designer was. And that pendulum started to swing
good point.
the next decade, right? And so I would be curious. I think that some of the best interior designers that I know are really great project managers too. Now, this is a huge conversation. So there's technical designers,
Mhm.
which tend to lean towards that project manager. They get every deliverable and they know that here's your issue for engineering set at 10% DD on this
Yes.
date, and they will work plan it out. And then you have the visionary that is like, the sky's the limit. Here's my narrative. And yes, I saw this with my own eyes and not Pinterest. And, it's just really, it's an interesting thing because I think there's so many different avenues you can go with interior design.
Mhm.
And project management is actually one of them. And I think everybody needs a breadth of it, of understanding it. But this is my opinion. Not everybody has to be that awesome project manager. That's my opinion.
Yeah, it's a team, and I think that's another thing. I'm not sure how many people are in. I know you think you said 200 in your firm, but your team.
My team in Dallas is about 8.
So yes, I feel like everybody just needs a team, right? Like just to bounce things off of, and everybody's stronger at different spots. I've been navigating going through some drawing, like actually drawing in Revit this last month, and do you know how much Googling I've been doing? And I'm like, somebody right next to me could probably do that faster. But we've just had some turnover, and I've inherited this project where I'm like, all right, Crystal, get your AutoCAD
Got
hat
it.
off and get your Revit hat back on and figure out like how to make sure you're navigating because I just haven't done it. It's not a daily thing like I was earlier on my career is where you're navigating producing as much as I'm like I can redline with the best of 'em, and Bluebeam is my best friend. But then now I'm having to execute. So I'm like, okay, our team is growing and shifting and changing. And that would have been something that somebody else maybe would have worked on. But now, now it's on me and I'm having to get back in it. And so I miss my some of my teammates.
Yeah. Well, Crystal may be hiring, guys.
Oh yes.
I would love to touch on that like a little bit more in depth about how you kind of continue your career or get to a point of being a project manager. You stop doing certain things that we've learned to die on in school, right? Earlier on in our career, we learned that all those little steps and all those technical things. And then you get down the road in your career, you become a project manager, you become a senior, you become a lead and your role shifts. And I would love to hear from you, Crystal, with all of your experience, kind of how that shift happens, and then the ability to be able to go back, like you said, and do some of those technical things that maybe you're not doing on a day to day basis, and what that kind of means for a project manager.
Bridget, I'm not doing it well, but I'm doing it. And I say I'm not doing it. I'm doing it. I think it's a weird shift too when you become senior. I remember coming out of Houston at Leeway Daily and being the only person born in the 80s, right? Like people are like, "Oh, I have socks older than you," and like all, whatever it was. And now again, I'm the only person born in the 80s, but I'm the older end of it. And I'm like, "When did that happen? Like how did that shift happen?" Working at a firm that there's 12 of us now and seeing it grow, it's like it was kind of a natural thing. And I personally have to always remember, okay, Crystal, you're 20 years in, you're a leader. Like sometimes I go back to I always kind of put myself in I'm just learning to do this. I'm just new. And I'm like, no, you're an old lady now. Like you're part of the senior of it. So leaning into that too, I think you just have to like dabble in it a little bit. Again, And then when I say dabble in, like, don't completely lose it. And I haven't completely lost it, but I'm just a little slower. So it's like riding that bike that you still can get onto and maybe go up the street, but you're not doing with no hands and popping willies or anymore. I'm not popping willies, but I'm slowly navigating. And I will say, and I'll be completely vulnerable about this, it's frustrating because in my head, I'm like, damn, I used to be really good at this. I could knock out a set of drawings like no other, right? And now that programs change, programs develop, I'm like, okay, that rendering looks beautiful. I'm not going to be doing that, but I can look at it and give you feedback and let people know like my input and have my historical knowledge. One thing in our industry too, when people become, I always say this, it's like the people start to disappear at 40 or when they start to have kids in our industry. And so I just turned 43 a couple weeks ago, so I ain't going anywhere. But also, people need to have that historical knowledge in our industry, right? We don't need to continue to, I'm going to say, go on the rep side or go, away because, money's probably better over there. Time availability is better. Maybe they can be there when the kids get off the bus, kind of things. And so those are things that look good, but again, that stubborn part of me is like, okay, I'm slow at this, but I'm going to continue to navigate it. And I know our team will continue to grow and change. And this isn't my forever. And it's temporary, but I'm going to get the job done and the project done.
And I love that you're in this senior role and you're not like, "Oh, no, that's not what I do. I'm not gonna do that." Like,
I have
I
no ego. That's
yeah, and
good and
that's
bad. I don't know.
beautiful. That's beautiful because there's a lot of people I mean, you've talked a little bit about the furniture side too that maybe thinks, "Oh, in our industry, we're always taught," I was talking to somebody else about this the other day, but in our industry, it seems like furniture is a big part of my business and what we do as
Mhm.
well, and it seems like more interior designers on the furniture side are lower than a person who is, maybe a project manager on the construction side or CA or doing documents or whatever. But I think it's so important to note that the furniture side is a huge deal. There takes a full project management just with the furniture side of things of our business
It really
and
does.
then a full type of project manager for, the whole process, and I've always said that you learn best project manager wise when you're boots on the ground, you're on site, you're seeing problems, you're having to problem solve, you're knowing what not to do the next time, you're able to come back to the office and give feedback and say, "Hey, I saw X, Y, and Z on site and we need to change our standards or our details or whatever because that is not clocking on site." So I think it's when you get out there and you get that experience on site and you're able to bring that back into your firm, that's a huge part of what we do as project managers.
Right, and that boots on the ground, I like that you said that because for about 4 years, I worked for Austin Community College, and I was, in the facilities department, and so we built, 2 new campuses and, worked existing campuses, but also just seeing how the furniture is used post, occupancy, right? And when I say post, I don't mean like the day after you install it, right? 3 months down the road, a year down the road, healthcare, we're dealing with when you spray, when you do the cleaning, like making sure the facilities folks actually wipe down the cleaning products off the material. Because when you see it all eating away on the nonwovens, you're like, "Oh, well, that was a pretty purple." I'm thinking about this hospital I was at yesterday for Bo's appointment. All of the upholstery is eaten away, and I'm like, "I know what happened. The cleaning people didn't wipe it off." And so those are things that if you don't know that, you're gonna continue to make those selections. You're gonna continue to see that detail that's done wrong in every project if you don't go out and see it. So being on the end user side for me was so helpful because it's easy to just do something in Revit or CAD or whatever you're using behind the scenes and not actually see it come to life and be lived in, right? And we want it to look pretty day 1 and, day 25 or day 35, whatever years.
Another big part of what we do is just we're constantly learning. If you're not learning, you're not growing. That's a cliche, right? But it is for a reason. And I'll give you an example of what I've been doing lately. AI has been a huge topic. We actually get asked, "Hey, will you do an AI episode?" And I think the time is going to come that we're going to have to do that. But there's some really great ways that you can use it to save time. I've actually been experimenting on that, and it's terrifying because I was like very anti against it. But I'm at the point where, from a project management standpoint, I have to find ways to save time in my day. And that's one way I can utilize it is using AI tools to help me work smarter, not harder, not just from the design standpoint. So it's an interesting topic of learning. Let's move on. We have a question for you regarding your involvement in the industry. You have been very involved in IIDA and Neocon. Can you talk a little bit about that? And for designers out there that are thinking about getting involved, how would they go about getting involved to the level that you have as writer and just all the things?
So yeah, I started at the beginning of the year actually writing for Office Insights, and that was just kind of happened organically from one of my girlfriends who was writing for it at Neocon. She invited me to go to like one of their little happy hours just outside the mart, and I met Rob, and he's the editor there, and we just naturally connected. But it wasn't for months later that he reached out. And Maria is my friend who was writing for them. She's with the OFS, and again, just I didn't say no. You think about it, and you're like, oh, do I have time for this? I don't know. Well, it's every other month. It's not that like it's really not that bad. And I have things to share. And
Yeah.
just like you guys, like what you guys are doing, y'all have things to share. I think I don't say no. I think that's part of how I've been able to get involved. And even seeing what you were talking about in college, like I did student government, I did all the intramurals, played intramurals. And so doing things outside of the industry too, and then also being able to come back and do within, I really, really enjoy it. And I enjoy people. I think that's another thing is it's happened very organically in the sense of like I don't have any intentions, and I hate to say it that way. I feel like I need to be intentional and I need to have like an end goal. Like, okay, what are you gonna from doing this podcast? What am I promoting? I am not promoting anything to you guys. I'm advocating. I am. And then also, I guess another thing is being a Black woman in this industry, since there's not very many of us, it's also representing. One of my mentor friends is moving to Italy, and she's one of the first Black interior designers I met. And I didn't even realize that until they were asking about like how you met her and how it came. And I was like, wait, and I was already moved to Austin. So I'd already been in the industry for maybe 3 years before I met her. And I'm like, you know what? I never saw anybody that looked like me for a very, very long time. Also going to Texas State and doing like student critiques and things like that, you don't realize that, okay, these students of color are also wanting to see people who look like them that come and that they can see themselves in the future what they can be doing. And so that's another thing that keeps driving me too is to not say no because I know people want to or students or other people in the industry need to see people like them around too. Y'all are beautiful, but I want to be seen.
I love that.
So I think it's again organic. It's all happened pretty organically. Put yourself out
I think that's all come from passion too for the industry and just
there.
passion for what you do. And being able to advocate and be a representation is amazing. And you are influencing people. I mean, even if those people don't come up to you afterwards and say anything, I just want you to know that you are giving representation where it needs to be, and you should be very proud of that.
I appreciate it. Even hearing Mel say that at the beginning, like I was like, wait, what? I didn't know that. And so I do appreciate you guys both saying that because you do kind of think of, okay, why am I doing these things? I know that it does affect, and I've gotten emails and letters and things from people after reading some of the things I've written in the Office Insights or podcasts, like you said, that I've done. And I met a girl in Neocon one year and she cried after seeing one of my podcasts and she was going through I had breast cancer. I ended up having it twice and going through that, you don't realize that sharing about that story and my journey and navigating that affects people. And so she was going through the similar thing and just me sharing helped out.
And
So
I think that's so unique too to be in this industry and to battle the things that you've battled and then to see that you've overcome that. So an incredible story. I mean, you've just briefly mentioned, I mean, just your son having heart surgery, you having breast cancer. I'm like, wow, this woman has championed every single part. Your story is incredible, and you should be proud at where you are today and what you're advocating for because you're touching a lot of people. That's our whole reason of doing Design Muse podcasts is to reach people and advocate for our industry, but bring people on like yourself to have our listeners hear another perspective or story or background to show that you can be a mom, you can go through these things, breast cancer, your kids, everything, and still be successful, still be in this industry because it's awesome to be a proud interior designer at this point in your career and still be there. And I love that about your story. And I think my next question, we've talked a lot about advocation and the history of the advocation. So, what do you think would be the best thing to do to advocate for people 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, the future of our industry and the future of design?
I think showing up to students. I think it's easy for students because I feel like it's easy to decide you want to do interior design as a career or a major, and then continuing to sponsor and support them throughout. So you get in it, you maybe get an internship, you maybe don't. I feel like that's a way that we can continue to grow it, and then those people continue to do that for the next generation. It shouldn't always be us three doing that because we've been probably doing those things already, and then having those people continue to support and mentor and
Mentorship.
sponsorship. You were talking about IDA earlier. IDAs have been really something that I've been strong about lately too in the foundation side of it. So they have a nonprofit part of IDA that actually gives back. And
Mhm.
we had a student here at Texas State that I encouraged to apply for a scholarship, and she won $10,000. And I'm like,
Incredible.
yeah, I was so excited for her. And she was able to get a car to start going to internships because she was kind of limited by Uber. And you never think about the limitations that some of these students have and how that money isn't just going to go towards tuition, but to get them to that next step. So she is a beautiful designer, but she was stuck in San Marcos. And so now that she could get out and be able to navigate getting her internship. So I'm always pro mentorship, pro sponsorship, giving back to the industry. It's always easy to go home and be with your babies and do that thing, but I want my kids to also see that too, that we as a family that we can give back to different communities and our industry. But 10 to 20 years, I just hope people continue to do that. I feel like sometimes social media, and I say social media, like just the internet world or the world of internets, we get stuck of not like being face to face, right? It gets awkward when you go to the social events we're out and versus me. I'm like, I want to meet everybody. Oh, your face looks new. And now I'm the new person because I had kids and COVID slowed me down a little bit, I will say.
You're kinda talking mentorship and you're talking
Yeah,
just not letting technology as it increases over the next 10 and 20 years, not letting technology get in the way that we're still people and we need to be, socialized and mentorship from person to person and really still have that connection because at the end of the day, people are experiencing our spaces, you know?
exactly. Exactly.
And
And AI is not going to take that away. Like when you
No,
were saying that,
no.
like use it as a tool,
Yes.
but it's not going to take those things that you just said, Bridget. I love the way you said that. It's like the human connection is what we experience in the spaces that we're in. So I love that you're saying that.
With the mentorship side of it, leading by example is so important. It's important for
Mhm.
designers to see us with little kids and leaving for field day because you know what? Back in the day, there was none of that. I remember if they had kids, most of them didn't. They may be the 40-year-old that doesn't have kids, and that was totally fine.
Mhm.
But most of them got out that I worked with that were 10 years ahead of me, and so what I try really hard to do is make sure that I'm leading by example and I'm being the leader that I never had, and giving them that opportunity and that room, that path to grow and go down. And advocating is part of it, sponsorship is part of it. Bridget and I have this big audacious goal, and it's gonna happen. We wanna have our own scholarship fund.
I love
Eventually,
that.
that's on our mural board of it's a goal, so we're excited to explore that in the future, but it's part of it is giving back.
It really is, and you and that all of that helps. All of it helps. And I love what y'all are doing here. I mentioned to Mel that I haven't done a podcast with other interior designers. So even like I'm sure people like us will nerd out on the topics you guys talk about and the things that we were able to navigate here. But then sometimes, talking in our own little bubble, we talk how we know that SD, like right now I'm working on a DD set and presentation for approval. Like y'all are like, oh, I know exactly what she's working on. So I love being able to have this conversation also with you two who know what I'm going through when I run in and I'm like, oh, sorry, I'm just getting connected because I had to get a presentation deadline or red lines put together for that. Y'all know exactly what I was doing. And so I appreciate y'all taking the time to have this conversation and to do this podcast while y'all are running households and businesses and all the things and projects. I'm sure they're all beautiful.
Well, thank you for coming on, Krystal, and sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, and your joy. That's one thing I remember about you in college. I was lower classman. You were 2 years ahead of me. When you walked in the room, you had such joy, and that's contagious, and that's not something you can teach. So thank you so much for coming on and spreading the joy and love and passion for interior design.
First, thank you for having me. I appreciate y'all.